as we have a weather alert day, and we're going to have another one for tomorrow as well as we lead into our next storm system. And this one's going to be a big wind producer, and that's why we've actually declared the weather alert days. I know normally we do it for heavy snowfall and travel impacts in that sense, but in this case, this is going to be a widespread high wind event, and the potential for damaging winds is pretty up there. I won't deny it is higher than probably most events that we've seen in at least the relatively recent past when it comes to the wind. So if you can give me about 30 seconds to a minute, I'll get everything working here behind the scenes and we'll get started. But what I will show when I flip the camera around is the driver for all of this active weather, and it is once again the atmospheric river that has brought us a lot of rain over the last couple of days. We got a bit of a reprieve for Saturday and Sunday, but it came back for Monday and Tuesday, and you see this low pressure system right up here that's been deepening through the day, moving into British Columbia. That's dragging a strong cold front with it, and as it does so, that's going to be the driver for really strong winds into the overnight period, but especially in starting early on Wednesday morning. One last thing to get organized back here, and we'll be good to go. Got that there. Okay, I think we're in good shape. So for time's sake, and so I don't hold you up for too much of your evening, let's get started with this here in full. So thanks for taking a little bit of your evening to spend some time with me as we go through this update and what we can expect with a pretty strong storm system that's going to be rolling through. Again, if you're just tuning in, it's not necessarily going to be a heavy snow producer outside of a few localized areas, I should say. It's going to be a high impact wind event across not just western Montana, but really the entire region, the entire state is going to see the effects of this. So again, if you have any questions or comments as we go throughout this, feel free to ask those in the chat section, and I'll try and keep an eye on them as we go throughout this. So we have that atmospheric river in place. This is helping to keep us pretty mild right now, temperatures in the 40s and 50s across the region. And as we go to radar, you can see this moisture. We've had some scattered showers, primarily for areas along and west of the divide through the afternoon. But over the last hour to 2 hours, we've really seen this blow up in moisture back into the Idaho Panhandle, now moving into parts of northwest and west central Montana. This is likely going to be continuing as we go throughout the night. So I'm going to stop this and show you where we're seeing some of the heaviest precipitation right now. Snow level's still quite high, up around 6,000, 6,500 feet. So for most of the region right now, this is all rain, though. Up towards Marias Pass, we could see a little bit of light snowfall there over towards maybe as far west as, say, Essex. But down towards the Bob Marshall, we're seeing some of that snow. Elsewhere, Highway 83, Highway 200, and then 141 back over here towards the Helmville area, and then Avon and Elliston over on US 12. This is all rain. Same story as we go from Kalispell back over through Marion, Kyla, Happy's Inn, up towards Libby and Troy, where we're going to see another round of heavy rainfall, potentially as much as a half an inch to an inch overnight in hard-hit parts of Lincoln and Sanders counties. Unfortunately, we can't escape the rain up there, and that continues even further south down towards Lookout Pass on Interstate 90. We're looking at rain, St. Regis, and this is just going to continue to build into more of northwest and west central Montana as we go throughout the rest of the night, especially once we get beyond midnight. But you see some of these higher reflectivities, the darker greens, the yellows back here north of I-90, north and west of Wallace, east of Spokane. This is the kind of rainfall where we could see those rates maybe 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch per hour, and that's what we're worried about, bringing more, at least making the flooding situation, or at least increasing the rivers and streams and creeks into parts of Sanders and Lincoln counties with that type of activity. The good news is this isn't going to be a long duration heavy rainfall event. What it is going to be more of a long duration event is a long duration high wind event. And as you can see, we have high wind warnings for pretty much the entirety of the state. You see this little spot up here into the West Glacier region? The only reason we don't have a high wind warning there is because we have a winter storm warning that takes into account the high winds that we're going to be seeing, potentially 60 to 80 miles per hour in that area. But pretty much anywhere you see these golden colors with high wind warnings, we're talking winds anywhere from 50 to 80 miles per hour. And with that, we are going to see the potential for some significant impacts with wind damage. I have it as possible. I would even say wind damage is likely overnight tonight and into tomorrow. Sustained winds out of the west and southwest, 25 to 40 miles per hour. Gusts of 50 to 80 miles per hour are going to be common, and there is going to be the potential in a few locations, especially higher elevations and then towards the Rocky Mountain front, places like East Glacier Park Village, Browning, over towards Cut Bank. We could be talking winds 90 to 100, maybe even 110 miles per hour. I don't know if we're going to get quite that high, but the potential is there for wind gusts closer to 100 miles per hour coming off the front, the Rocky Mountain front. But I wanted to read a couple of specific high wind warnings directly from the National Weather Service to just kind of give you some areas that are likely going to see maybe higher impact type of winds. And these are going to be, I just got to go through these. I'll say most of these high wind warnings, these run from 2 a.m. They begin at 2 a.m. early Wednesday morning through, say, 2 to 7 o'clock in the afternoon. So for places like the Kootenai Cabinet region, Flathead, Mission Valley's Lower Clark Fork region, those run through 5 p.m. on Wednesday. Looking at places like, if I can get it pulled up, Missoula, Bitterroot Valleys, Bitterroot, Sapphire Mountains, it's also going to be 5 p.m. 8 p.m. for the Butte Blackfoot region, Potomac Sealy Lake region. Then we get into southwest Montana, and those will be running until 11 p.m. Wednesday for the Livingston area. As we get towards more of southwest Montana, places like the Gallatin Valley, down into the Madison River Valley, those will be running through midnight to Wednesday night, so really throughout the entirety of the day. So going into a little bit more detail of some of the highest gusts or areas that could see those greatest wind gusts, looking at places like northwest Beaverhead County, the Gallatin Valley, the Missouri Headwaters area towards Three Forks. We're talking isolated wind gusts in excess of 85 miles per hour. Also talking places like Reynolds Pass, down towards West Yellowstone, Ennis, going through the list. Of course, Bozeman Pass, Big Sky, Homestake Pass, over towards Butte. We, again, talking gusts, 35 to 45 mile per hour sustained winds, gusts up to 75 expected with isolated gusts up to 85 miles per hour. So really, all of southwest Montana, we could be in for over hurricane force wind gusts. That starts at 74 miles per hour. So if we're 75 to 85 miles per hour, you're talking category 1 type hurricane winds in gusts, not necessarily sustained winds for the entirety of the day, but these erratic gusts in there can't be ruled out. Going into the East Glacier Park region, the Northern High Plains, talking places like St. Mary, East Glacier Park, Browning. Gusts up to 90 miles per hour are expected, with gusts over 100 miles per hour possible, especially close to the Rocky Mountain front. There's a couple of remote stations that tend to get those strongest winds. I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on them. I think is it Deep Creek? I'm blanking on what it is, but it had a gust of 101 miles per hour last week. So that's another area. And that will probably see some pretty significant impacts. Going back into more of northwest and west central Montana, let's look at the Butte Blackfoot region, Potomac Sealy Lake region. We're talking 30 to 40 mile per hour sustained winds, gusts up to 70 expected. Gusts greater than 80 miles per hour could be experienced from Garrison Junction to McDonald Pass and Deer Lodge to Anaconda. And that stretch of I-15, and I'll bring this up here in a minute, north-south roads could be very difficult for travel, especially for high-profile vehicles. We've got these west-southwest winds, so using this as an example, you've got Interstate 15, and I'll go through a couple of more of these. But you have those east-west winds or those west winds hitting that north-south road, and you have a diesel, an 18-wheeler, getting broadsided by those types of winds, those are the types of gusts that could easily have a blowover issue for 18-wheelers, trailers, campers, things like that. Even some large trucks can have some issues with these types of winds. They get blown around just because they get hit right from the side. So that's another issue. So while I'm on that thought, north-south roads, locations like US 93 for the Flathead, Mission, Missoula, Bitterroot valleys. That's one area. That stretch of Interstate 90, I said I-15 from Garrison to Anaconda. That's Interstate 90. But that stretch could be very treacherous as well. Interstate 15 from Monida Pass through Dillon up to Butte, and then all the way north from there, pretty much that entire stretch of Interstate 15. Then you have US 89, US 287, US 191. All of those are going to be very tricky, especially again for high-profile vehicles, really from the early morning hours throughout the day on Wednesday. So winds will start to calm back down as we head into Thursday, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Getting more focused once again, going into the Bitterroot Valley specifically, east-west canyons could have gusts greater than 80 miles per hour from Florence to Corvallis to Charloes Heights and Connor. So those canyons coming off the Bitterroots, those can essentially funnel those winds and intensify them coming down into the main valley. So there could be some issues again there, US 93. And then up into the Mission Valley, we could see very similar types of winds, though I don't think they're going to be quite as strong. Probably more likely up to around 60 to 65 into the Flathead, Mission Valleys, Lower Clark Fork region, and the Kootenai Cabinet region. But then the West Glacier region, which I'll talk about here in, let me get this pulled up, for the winter storm warning, they talk about winds upwards to 70 miles per hour in the higher terrain, but that also the potential of anywhere from maybe 6 to 12 inches of snowfall as well. So that's another factor altogether. With a lot of the other areas, we are going to be dealing with rain, a little bit of snow, but it's not going to be a ton of snow as compared to the higher amounts that we're going to likely see up towards the West Glacier region, East Glacier Park region, up over Marias Pass. That said, there are still going to be issues, and I'll get into more of those here in just a second. So again, gusty winds could cause tree damage, and some of that could be significant tree damage, and the potential of sporadic to widespread power outages. One thing that makes this situation a little bit worse, and another reason why we took it to the weather alert day criteria, is because of the saturated ground from all of the rain that we've had the last, say, week and a half or so. That saturation has essentially weakened the ground underneath trees, and it's going to make them more susceptible to tipping over, getting pulled down due to these strong winds. The other thing that's not helping is the fact it's been so warm. Normally this time of the year, we've already seen the ground freeze up, so that moisture would just be held and holding the roots in place. With how warm and mild it's been, that's just not going to happen. So the trees are more likely to tip over, and again, that's something that could pull down power lines. We could see those block roads if we have enough of those, especially up in northwest Montana. And even, again, I hope this doesn't happen, but if the tree is in an unfortunate spot that it falls on top of a home, that's also a big concern as well. So there's a lot of tree damage, and even with these kinds of winds, you could even see infrastructure type damage. You could see outbuildings get destroyed. So, like I said, the winds are nothing to sneeze about or to take lightly with this storm system. So going into sort of the timing and all of this, we're going to see some breezy winds tonight. Those are going to probably be more in that 10 to 25 mile per hour range. But this is looking to 3 a.m. and watch how these purples really start to expand in coverage. By the time we get to 8 o'clock, almost the entire region is seeing winds gusting 30 to 60 miles per hour, and those may intensify even further as we head into the lunchtime period. You see Great Falls 60 plus, 50 to 60 for all of southwest Montana, 40 to 50. This just kind of gives you the sense that this isn't just a specific location that's going to see these types of winds. It is the entire region that's going to be dealing with these damaging winds. Once we get beyond, say, 5, 6 o'clock, we're still going to be quite breezy, quite windy, with gusts potentially 30 to 40 miles per hour. But the later into the night we go, the calmer those winds get, and we finally start to see them drop back down less than 20 to 30 miles per hour as we get into Thursday morning. So this is going to, again, be a relatively long duration, heavy wind event. But once this gets past us into Thursday morning, things quiet down very quickly. So there's the wind side of things. Again, this is the biggest facet, biggest feature of this storm system that we need to take the greatest heed of. But also, there's still a flooding potential up in northwest Montana, and Future Tracker's done a good job picking up on this increase in moisture in northwestern portions of the state. We'll see that continue as we go throughout the night, and then we get that push from the cold front. And this is likely going to arrive again just after midnight, but you notice 3, 4 o'clock, we're still all rain in places like Libby, Troy, Kalispell, Polson, Missoula, Hamilton. It's all rain in our valleys at this point, and the winds are still roughly out of the south. It's as we get closer into, say, 5, 6 o'clock, you'll notice that these little, these white lines that are moving south to north across the area will shift, and you'll see those really start to change in direction as we get closer to maybe sunrise, the morning commute tomorrow. And you can tell with this roughly where the front is located. So I'm going to pull it just a little bit further forward, and the front is roughly in this zone by 9, 10 o'clock. And one thing else to notice is it's primarily rain out in front of it, but you look behind that front and it's transitioned over to snow. We're likely going to see a very quick transition from rain to snow with this storm system behind the front. So snow levels will go from 6,000 feet down to around 3,000 feet, 3,500 feet, crashing down to near valley floors. So we're going to be starting off as rain, and potentially some heavy rain, as you see some of these orange, yellows, and reds showing up back into Idaho. So heavy rainfall, and then we get that cold air on the backside of this system, which will bring those snow levels down to valley floors, but also could promote a bit of a flash freeze on the roads, depending on how quick, or at least how cold it gets behind that front. And that right there could lead to some nasty road conditions, more likely over our mountain passes. So look out Lolo, Lost Trail, Marias, and then eventually to places like Rogers, McDonald, Monida, Homestake, Bozeman, and the Reynolds and Targhee passes later on through the morning and early afternoon, as we see those temperatures really just crash through the day. One note, though, there have been, earlier this week, there was some indication that we see more of a rain-snow mix in our valleys. That's still on the table, but based on this most recent run of Future Tracker, it does look like places like Kalispell, Missoula, Hamilton, Polson, and even Bozeman, we may stay primarily as rain for this event until we get later on into the evening with some moisture on the back side of this. So that may help us out on the travel aspect, but over mountain passes, it's not going to be particularly fun with the strong winds. And this is also that window where we could see some heavy snowfall up towards Marias Pass, why we have that winter storm warning in place. We'll continue this moving forward as we get closer to, say, 9, 10 o'clock. Butte, we see that transition from rain over to snow. Same thing down towards Monida Pass. Bozeman, we are still rain at this point, and watch as we get into the 10 o'clock period, 11 noon. We're still seeing that as all rain in the valleys with snow in the higher elevations, but you see all of this wind that just continues to push across the area. That's just those very strong winds we're going to see tomorrow. But you notice the difference from this activity out in front, primarily greens, to this activity that develops behind the cold front. This is looking around lunchtime tomorrow, and you see these bands of snow developing along the state line and up into the higher elevations along the divide and into northwest Montana. That will be the potential of some pretty treacherous road conditions and snow squalls. We could see some intense snow squalls with near zero visibility. Whiteout conditions will be possible, especially over our mountain passes, maybe even in a few valley locations, depending on how much cold air continues to filter in behind this front. But with those, again, near zero visibility, This continues through the afternoon, even as the majority of the moisture starts to pull out. But right now, I'm thinking places like Marias Pass, Lookout Lolo, Lost Trail, Rogers, McDonald passes probably have the highest likelihood of seeing those issues with that potential for snow squalls. Maybe even towards Homestake Pass. Can't rule that out as well as we go later on into the evening, or into the afternoon and evening. But you see how it just kind of sticks around in those same places into the early afternoon. But in general, the later we go in the day, the less and less moisture is going to be available as the storm system pushes further off to the east and impacts more of eastern Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota into Wednesday night and Thursday morning. And I think by the time we get into Thursday morning, we are looking at much quieter conditions, at least for a short period of time. So due to the accumulations of snow that we could see, we do have winter weather advisories through 11 a.m. down in the mountains of southwest Montana. The winter storm warning for the West Glacier region, the Southern Rocky Mountain front, and the East Glacier Park region, we are looking at that continuing through 11 p.m. on Wednesday due to that lingering snowfall that's expected to be in place. Valleys, we're talking 2 to 5 inches of snow, so places like West Glacier, maybe even towards Hungry Horse, Cora, Martin City, but up at the pass level, we're talking 6 to 12 inches, and with that potential of gusty winds, 60 to maybe 80 miles per hour. 60 miles per hour down the lower elevations, 70 to 80 in the higher terrain. So looking at snowfall totals, I'm going to move this forward here. And I'll come back to, I just saw that question about the Bitterroot. I will come back to that. I did talk about Hamilton in that area a few minutes ago, but I will talk about those winds here in just a second, now that I saw your question. So looking through, well, I'll go through midnight tomorrow once that winter storm warning is allowed to expire. This particular model run showing about 4 to 8 inches. It could be more in that 6 to 12 inch range towards Marias Pass. But you notice the rest of our passes, we're going to see that more in that 1 to 5 inch range, or especially Lookout, Lolo, Lost Trail, and then over towards Rogers Pass. But watch what happens beyond Thursday. We get a little bit of a break Thursday morning into the afternoon, but here comes another plume of moisture that moves in, and you see those snowfall totals go up pretty quickly, especially along the state line, and then back up towards Marias Pass. So this is looking into the first half of Friday, and we could be talking total snowfall accumulations with both systems of anywhere from maybe 6 to 18 inches of snow along the state line, Lookout, Lolo, Lost Trail passes, as well as for Marias and Rogers passes as we get into Friday afternoon. Likely Friday evening is when Homestake, Monida, and Bozeman get a little more involved with this next storm system. But the reason I bring this up is we actually have a new set of winter storm watches that will be in effect for the Bitterroot and Sapphire Mountains and the southern Clearwater Mountains for the, I believe it's the late Wednesday to Friday time frame. Yes, late Wednesday night through late Friday night. And for the valleys in these areas, we're talking about 1 to 5 inches and up to 2 feet of snow in the mountains. So some heavy mountain snow is expected, and so models may be a tad underdone based on this, but still you see 18 to 24. Certainly can't rule that out towards Lolo, Lost Trail, and Lookout passes as we go through. So now that I got the winter storm, or the wintry side of this, let me jump back to that question that I saw. So again, talking about the Bitterroot Valley towards Hamilton. So the winds are going to be the biggest issue towards the Bitterroot Valley, and I will go right back into the high wind warning specifically for the Missoula and Bitterroot Valleys, and I'll give you like a full breakdown on that one. So the high wind warning for the Missoula and Bitterroot Valleys, that runs from 2 a.m. Wednesday morning to 5 p.m. Wednesday afternoon. Sustained winds out of the west and southwest, 30 to 40 miles per hour, with gusts up to 70 miles per hour are expected, but west to east canyons could have greater gusts, or gusts greater than 80 miles per hour from Florence down through Corvallis, Hamilton, Charlotte Heights, and Connors. So Hamilton, we could be talking some isolated gusts, 70 to 80 miles per hour, and that's enough to cause some roof damage to buildings and homes like that. But I think the greatest impact will be to trees in the area, bringing some of those trees down, due to the saturated soils already in place, but also the potential for scattered to widespread power outages. And it's not just the Bitterroot Valley that's going to see that. That's going to be the case across all of the regions. So we've got some pretty impressive winds. So again, thank you for the question. And yeah, I agree with the yikes. This is going to be a definitely one to another little tip that if you have anything on your patio, on your porch, or say your garbage can is out, you may want to bring that into your garage or wherever it can be safe, because those items, if they're not tied down, they may be going and visiting your neighbors, or even the next community over with the kind of winds we could be seeing. So it's a little bit of I'll say a little bit of lightheartedness with this, but I want everybody to take this seriously. Because like I said, this isn't like our typical weather alert day. Normally we're talking about lots of snow with the winds. In this case, it's primarily just a significant wind event outside of a few locations up in the mountains where we could be talking the heavier snow towards, say, the West Glacier region. Now, I do want to talk about one more thing when it comes to the overall precipitation, and I'm going to back this up because this does take into account 2 storms. As we go throughout the rest of the night with this wave, we could see about an additional 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch of rainfall for our valleys of most of west central and southwest Montana. But unfortunately, looking towards Troy, Libby, we could see another 1/2 inch to 1 inch in our valleys up there. So that'll just, add a little greater concern to some of our flooding issues, as we do still have a flash flood watch for the Kootenai Cabinet region and the Libby area through Wednesday afternoon. But once we get past tonight and tomorrow, I think we will finally start to see our flooding concerns go down. But plenty more moisture is on the way. As you see that next storm system as we head into Friday, we see those precipitation totals go up even more significantly. But I think the difference here is we actually could be talking a little bit more snow down in our valleys, especially for Thursday, before snow levels start to rise into Friday and Saturday and bring those snow levels back up. But one other factor in all of this that I want to bring up is the potential for avalanches up into parts of Sanders, Flathead, Lincoln, and Lake counties. We have avalanche watches through tomorrow morning. We could see those upgraded avalanche warnings into parts of the Whitefish, Swan, Cabinet, Selkirk Mountains for those higher elevations, due to the combination of the winds, the rain, the snow, and the back and forth with all of it. It's just leading to some very dangerous avalanche conditions up there. And really, I think more areas would be seeing more concerns with avalanches if it hadn't been so warm and we've seen so much of the mid-level snowpack melt away. So just this multiple faceted series of storms and how warm they've been are just going to keep the avalanche danger pretty high. And this may be a continuing problem for much of the winter, just because this base layer that's going to be there is going to be a little bit weaker. There's going to be some issues in those, the compacting of those snow layers throughout the winter. So backcountry conditions are going to be pretty tricky and potentially dangerous, like we're seeing up there in northwest Montana right now. The other side of this is, even with a cold front, and somebody brought this up yesterday, and I thought it was quite funny. I guess I'll bring this back around. They asked me, you're talking about a cold front, yet we're still going to be looking at above average temperatures, and that's exactly what this is going to be. We're going to see temperatures fall pretty quickly tomorrow, so these high temperatures, looking at 44 degrees in Missoula, this will likely be in the morning. By the time we get into the afternoon and evening, we'll probably be talking temperatures in the 30s and maybe even the 20s in a few locations. So temperatures will be falling through the day, but then we go into Thursday and Friday and we warm back up into the upper 30s and lower 40s once again. So we're going to be talking temperatures still 5 to 15 degrees above average even into this weekend. So yes, it is a cold front. We're not looking at temperatures 20 degrees above average, but still it's not going to be like the significant Arctic blast like central and eastern Montana dealt with last week. But it is going to be a cool down, but with that, that's why we're seeing the winds. This is a very strong cold front. It just doesn't necessarily have a lot of cold air with it. So it's not an Arctic front, it's a Pacific one, and so it's going to have a lot of moisture, it's going to have a lot of wind, and a slight drop in temperatures in comparison to what we'd expect. So This is pretty much everything that I have. I've got one more graphic, just sort of a recap everything. But if you have any questions or comments, just to sort of finish this off, thank you for spending about a half an hour with me. And I hope I've, gotten everybody as prepared as we can for this heavy wind event, because it's, like I said, it's a little bit of a, not necessarily what you would expect for a big weather alert day, especially in December. Be thinking heavy snowfall, but the winds are going to cause their own problems. And with how widespread these winds are going to be, we could be in a very busy day, overnight and day tomorrow, with just the potential power outages, travel problems with those north-south roads. So, again, just hopefully I've articulated the threat level with this, but also ways that we can prepare for it and ways we can stay safe in this high wind event. So, recapping what we're looking at, the rainfall, we are going to see that continue to increase, especially into northwest Montana tonight and into Wednesday. We're going to see about potentially a half an inch to another inch of rainfall in the valleys of Lincoln County. Elsewhere, we're probably talking about a tenth to a quarter of an inch on the high side. We will see that transition of rain to snow behind the cold front, especially at our higher elevations. For our valleys, we are going to be looking at that wintry mix, but some snow squalls are more likely over our mountain passes, but can't be ruled out even in some of our valleys if we get enough energy down to the surface. But the winds, that is our key focus for this. That's why we declared the weather alert day for today, but primarily for tonight and into Wednesday. Southwest and westerly winds 25 to 45 miles per hour sustained, with gusts 50 to 80 miles per hour, with a few gusts even stronger than that, especially as you get towards places like Browning, East Glacier Park, where we could see gusts 90 to 100, 105 miles per hour for tomorrow. But even some of these 60 to 80 mile per hour gusts, you could see those down towards the Bitterroot Valley, Garrison, down towards Deer Lodge and Anaconda, that north-south stretch of Interstate 90, and then down into southwest Montana, the Madison River Valley, 191 from Bozeman down through Big Sky to West Yellowstone. It's just going to be a mess for tomorrow when it comes to those winds. So I think with that, I will wrap this up. If you get any photos or videos of this storm coming through, say from your patio and you've got just strong winds blowing through your area, or if you have, issues with power, trees going down, if you have photos or videos of those, feel free to share those with us at nbcmontana.com/chime-in. You can see your photos and videos on air or online, but also if we get those photos and videos, it helps to give, I'll say for me, it helps give me ground truth to what's happening, what we're seeing from some of the data from the sensors across the area as well. So it definitely helps us out, and we appreciate that assistance if you happen to see something, but always, first and foremost, only do so if you can do so safely. If you don't feel comfortable or safe doing it, stay inside, stay safe. That is our number one priority, is the safety and the protection of life and property. That's what we're hoping for. So again, thanks for spending a little bit of time this evening. Hope you have a great evening, a safe evening. Tune into our live broadcast tonight at 10 o'clock for the latest news and weather updates. And then, of course, tomorrow morning as this event really starts to take shape, NBC Montana Today with Chief Meteorologist Brooke Foster and Jason Hurst from 5 to 7 a.m. Tomorrow. And I'll likely be back for another YouTube Live tomorrow just to talk about some of those highest wind gusts, some of the damage reports we've seen. Again, hopefully we have zero damage reports. Hopefully this is a complete dud of a storm and we don't see any kind of winds over 30 miles per hour. But right now, as it looks like, that isn't going to happen. But we'll be here to keep you informed. So stay safe, everyone. I'll see you all in the next one. With NBC Montana, I'm meteorologist Mitchell Combs.